Hey, football fans, this is Gary Greene in Las Vegas, longtime sports handicapper and professional sports bettor for the past 35 years and publisher of the Blue Book Football Betting Magazine for the past 30 years. And this is our NFL Week number 8 recap by looking inside the numbers, inside the box scores, and the very, very misleading results. And these are things that the average fan, if you don't watch all the games and you don't really look at them in depth, you just might see final scores and just assume that the score was exactly the way the final score played out. But there's a lot of games this weekend that's not the case. One being maybe the most misleading box score that I've watched, read, seen in 30 years. And that's the Detroit Lions 52-14 win over the Titans. Yes, the Lions performed well on offense when they did have the ball, which seemed like never. It was thanks to some key turnovers by Tennessee. But the final stats on this game, the Titans 23 first downs, the Lions only 17. Total yards, the Titans offense 416, the Lions only 225 total yards for the Lions. Total time of possession 36 minutes for the Titans, 24 for Detroit. The only good news heading into next week's big game versus the Packers for the Lions is that they pulled the starters early. So that's misleading as far as that would be concerned, because normally that's something I really pay attention to heading into this week's games. If I was doing a, a video telling you about tired legs like I do a lot for college football, you would get a little bit of misinformation just by looking at those numbers, because they're not going to tell you. They don't say how many minutes in the time of possession where the starters didn't play. You have to just know that and watch that on your own. But 4 turnovers by the Titans. This is a situation in the red zone. You have to give credit to the Lions. We love the Lions. We like this team a lot. Their offensive line, I've told you, is number one in the league. Goff is almost never even thrown an incompletion, although he only threw it 18 times, 15 for 15 times, 12 for 15 for 85 yards. If you told me he was going to finish 12 for 15 with 85 yards, I would say, one, he got hurt, and number two, I would say they lost. He got sacked 4 times. So that's pretty surprising. The offensive line, Goff, one thing he does is hold the ball a little bit too long, way too much trying to make big plays. But overall, the Tennessee rush game, 32 runs for 158. That's alarming going into next week's game, because Josh Jacobs is now seeming like he's finally settling in Green Bay, and he had his first big day, and I'll get to that when I get to that game. But um, the difference for Tennessee is they grinded them, because sometimes a guy could get 72 yards on a run, and then you say, well, they rushed for 140. Well, really, they rushed for 70. And if it's 30 other rushes, it's not good. The numbers at the end look deceiving, or look great, but it's deceiving. So that's the case here, because their longest run, Tennessee, was 17 yards. So they were popping them. They were getting them for a good amount for a little bit in the early part there. It looked like they were going to hang in there. And that's really a credit to the head coach for Tennessee. But Calvin Ridley, the good news, looks like he could be finally settling into that offense. He's the number one threat. It would be almost not surprising for me to see that team try to trade him too, as all these teams make these last second trades at the deadline. But he looked like his 2020 and his 2023 version. He had 10 catches, and he was a key cog in that offense yesterday. Um, the situation here though is that the Titans just don't have the quality overall. But the Titans defense continues to show that they're better than their record. They're trying their best. They just don't get any help at all from the offense. 4 turnovers. Nobody's going to be able to withstand that and win a game. But that score was very misleading. Another one, in a way, is misleading is, and I'm coming off probably the happiest outcome final just for my own self. I didn't even have this game as a bet, but my Washington Commanders hit a Hail Mary like that. I'll tell you, there was a house full of people here where everyone jumped up and hit the ceiling at the same time. It was the greatest happiness that I felt in watching Redskins Commander football in a decade, it seems like. But the bottom line is that this game stats are deceiving too, because you have the Bears, who took the lead with 28 seconds left with a team on offense where their quarterback, number one pick in the NFL draft, again showed me against a good defense, he struggles. He was lost the whole game. He scrambles fantastic. And that's what a lot of other good guys do. Kyler Murray does it. Even Lamar Jackson does it. But the bottom line is, can you make the big plays when you have to? And really, he didn't. They did get a touchdown on the last drive. They were bailed out by an overthrow pass 10 yards over the receiver's head on a fourth down that should have ended the game right there, but it didn't, and they got a touchdown, and you give them credit, they got a score. But he had 36 passing yards after 3 quarters. 36 passing yards. I like my Commander defense. They're probably the most improved defense in the league. Great linebacker play. They did fantastic in the free agency. Frankie Louvu is a beast. They're not missing tackles for the most part. They had one big play, Chicago down the sideline, that was just worked out. A good block by the lineman that pulled out, and everything worked out for a big touchdown run. But really, that's the only big play that Chicago had in that game. Now, when we look at this situation here, you have a Washington team that their offense got 481 total yards on a very good Chicago defense that rushed Daniels pretty good throughout the game. Now, Daniels was a little tentative with that broken ribs, bruised ribs, whatever you want to call them. But the one negative that I saw with him was that he underthrew severely 4 passes to pretty much wide open receivers, and 3 other catches were diving great catches too by McLaren that were off the charts. This guy's a superstar, McLaren, but the throws were short. So was it because the ribs problem, like the announcers kept saying over and over, but then he was able to throw a bomb 65 yards in the air, so he could reach it if need be. So, it still questions in my mind. I don't like the fact that this is the second time they beat the Giants 21-18, 7 field goals. This game they win with a situation of 4 field goals. They shank-a-lanka a field goal with a kicker who was 17 for 17, so I can't really cry foul there. The guy was 17 for 17 since he came on board, but he shanked that one. It would have put him up 15. 2 full touchdowns would have made a difference. This still is a situation right now for this Chicago Bears team that they have the talent. They have the offensive weapons. They have Allen. They have Odunze. They have decent runners. Their offensive line did get banged up in that game, and that didn't help. They lost 2 guys throughout on that game. The backup came in and got killed a little bit, but he made a couple of good blocks too. So when you're coming in off the bench, 2 good blocks and a couple bad ones, I guess, is really not that bad. The MVP of the game was the Bears punter, who punted it down there and put the Commanders inside the 15. In fact, 3 times inside the 5 on fantastic punts. This guy was just phenomenal. That's changed the game. But Caleb Williams, 4.3 yards per pass. You cannot keep doing that in this league. That's not MVP. That's not rookie of the year. That sucks. And that's going to have to get changed. But this is what's not going to change. The head coach stinks, like a lot of head coaches. And it's just the way it is. You don't understand what the hell they're doing. And the fact is that they made some questionable play calls. They're handing off to a lineman at the goal line. All these things, you have to remember that this is a weekly occurrence for some of these teams. And every once in a while, they just have a perfect game and you say, everything's fixed. And the horrible announcers say, everything looks fixed. It's not fixed. 1 week don't mean shit in this league. You got to do it 3-4 weeks in a row. And that's a problem for the Bears going forward. The Washington Commanders, for the most part, Ertz looked like he stepped up. The offensive line has played way better than I expected. The defense is playing better than expected. And we know that Daniels is a gift. He's a gift from heaven for this fan base. This team's going to go forward doing better. But the bottom line is some of their play calling in the red zone all year long, they're not scoring touchdowns. And that's going to come back to get them down the road, unfortunately for me, because I'm a Commanders fan. The next game I talked about on one of the videos because it was a rematch game. There were 2 of them this week, and Atlanta ended up getting the season sweep over Tampa Bay. They won 31-26. But I said that Tampa Bay, coming into the game, if you're a smart coach, you knew you could not get into a shootout with Atlanta because you would probably lose. What did he do? Todd Bowles, the worst head coach almost, just clueless. He went in and said, let's go into a shootout. I got my two top wide receivers out. Let's shoot it out. Moron. Okay, now let's see what happens. He looks a little genius when you look at the stats by Baker Mayfield because he throws it for 330 yards. So hats off to Mayfield. This kid's just playing phenomenal football. Now that he's not looking over his shoulder, he's set in his place. He's doing well. Without two top wide receivers, he got the job done enough to keep him in the game. The problem is they don't have the wide receivers. The passes went to K. Dotton, who I talked about was going to be his number one threat, but again, he's doing great. 9 catches, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's nice. But it's almost hard to believe opposing defenses weren't keying on him, just like they're not keying on still Brock Bowers for the Raiders. It doesn't make any sense, but the league doesn't make sense. So sometimes you have to overlook stupidness and still be able to make bets and become a winning bettor. I went 2-1 yesterday. Denver wins easy. I kind of gave that away on videos. I lose Kansas City as my loss, and I really don't have a problem with it. I mean, they had 2 bad drives. The defense held the Raiders like 250 yards. I'll get to that game in a second too, but it is what it is. I'd rather lose and be right on my thoughts than win with being wrong on my thoughts, because you're not going to continue to win at a long-term season rate or lifetime rate when you're just getting lucky. And Hail Marys are lucky, and that made a difference, but it's not like you got some miracle lucky win. The Redskins pretty much dominated the whole game. They dominated. So you didn't get lucky, or you didn't get really that unlucky, other than being stupid on how to run a Hail Mary play on defense. But, again, that's another day. I can make a zillion videos. I could spend all day here. But, again, the Tampa Bay offense going forward, 24 passes were thrown to tight ends and running backs, not wide receivers. That's a recipe for disaster, and you're not going to win doing that. You're not going to win. You have to make big plays in this league, and the teams that make them continue to win week after week after week, or 4 out of 5, whatever. That's going to be a problem. This Atlanta team, the defense is exactly what I thought. Not that good. Going to be a problem down the road. Anybody that can pass the ball is going to have big days against this defense. They don't tackle well. The schemes are terrible. They don't rush the quarterback well. They get some sacks here and there because the quarterbacks scramble all around and think they got 11 seconds back there, and then they eventually get caught. But the bottom line is this Atlanta offense, Kirk Cousins getting 8 touchdowns on you in 2 games. You're just not that good. And that's why I told you, Todd Bowles, they keep telling everybody, every week, announcers that are clueless. I wonder if some of these guys, they're not even Joe Fan level, half of these guys, but keep telling me that Todd Bowles is a good defensive coordinator. He sucks. Next game up here, Arizona at Miami. Hats off to Arizona, 28-27. I love this young coach. This guy's got this team in the right direction. Do they have the talent? Absolutely not. But they're playing close games, and, he's making the right calls. If they lose games close or whatever, that's fine to me. They're still building for the future. There are a lot of pieces away. Kyler Murray, though, if you don't sack him, you ain't going to win. And Miami's defense has been very disappointing to me. When they need to come up with the big stops, they don't. And then when the offense needs to come up with the big plays, they don't. This team can't get on the right direction on either side of the ball in the same game. But again, props to Arizona, down 9 points on the road. They get 10 points in their final 2 drives. The last drive, 5 minutes, just matriculated perfectly down the road, down the last 5 minutes, so that Miami doesn't even get the ball back. I want to give a little credit to Tua. He comes out there. He seemed like he played not scared. I did like the early start. I told you that the rapport with him and Hill would probably click back. Hill had a decent day with 6 catches and some decent yards. But the bottom line is that when I look at this Arizona team, I thought that the offensive line that I watched closely, that hadn't been great all year, played their best game of the year. And so we're going into week 9 now. We're about halfway. I could give report cards after next game, and it's a 17-game season. So I will do that. But that's something that you can hang your hat on. That makes Arizona, to me, a live play going forward. Their defense still is not great. I think Connor's a nice running back. I just don't think this team possesses the ball for enough plays to really be able to do the old-fashioned football of grinding and out, getting 100-yard rushing games. But they did everything they needed to, and two of those three fumbles, he fumbles one through the end zone basically that becomes a safety. And guess what? That safety is the difference in the ball game. So play calling on the last drive by Miami, either again, I told you they call him a genius. This head coach, play caller, McDaniel. He doesn't have a feel for the game at all. He runs the ball up the middle for no yards, and then he throws two dink passes that get nothing but incomplete because the other team sniffed it out. And that to me was playing not to lose. I don't understand it. You have Tua, you have Hill, you do the crossers across the middle. Hill almost untouchable there. He's too fast. He gets open. He breaks. He beats his defender every time. That's on Miami. Season over for Miami. Season over. It's not getting better. Next up, the Jets. And I wish there was some way that we could put some of these teams like the Jets to bed. But no, we can't because we got to watch them again on Thursday night as they get prime time again. I think I'm going to have a stroke being forced to watch that crap again. But the bottom line is they get beat by New England 25-22. And I said the defense would probably play their much best game when they needed it. And for the most part, they did. The Jets D held New England to 247 total yards and they lost. Are you kidding me? This Aaron Rodgers and company offense is just not in any sync at all. The play calling is just horrific, and 8 penalties. Discipline overall on this team is bad, and when discipline is bad, you're not going to win. So if you want to just keep thinking, oh, this is the week I told you they're not due, they're due to lose again and again and again. That's the due. Do theory is to do the same thing you've been doing every goddamn week, and that's what the Jets do every week. It's hard to watch. As far as uh, the Patriots, the only good news, you don't want Drake May to get hurt, but he wasn't really looking nothing great anyway when he got out there and got hurt. But Jacoby Brissett, when he ain't looking over his shoulder, this guy's a veteran. He did this for the Commanders last year. He's done it for years, these backup guys. When they had nothing to lose, man, you got to be scared. And if I was a Jets fan, when this guy came in, I would have said, we're in trouble because this guy's going to take every chance. He's going to throw it in tight windows. He doesn't care because there's nobody coming in to take his spot now. That's a problem going forward. But the problem for the New England Patriots is like too many teams. They need to get the first pick in the draft. They need the fourth pick in the same draft in the first round, the seventh pick, the 10th pick. They need them all because they're so void at every position. But I guess quarterback now because, we expect May's going to be good. But they have no wide receiver talent. They're the third team now that the number one threat is a tight end. Like Vegas, like Tampa Bay, the tight end is the best option for New England. They don't even have wide receivers to throw it to. Dinks to the running backs. I give credit to Brissett for getting them down there at the end and winning that game. And we saw, a couple of games like that yesterday. Tip your hat, Winston for Cleveland. But this Jets team, it's all over, folks. And when Tom Brady, when Aaron Rodgers comes out and says it's time to get ready for the darkness, even he knows the writing's on the wall. Even with that top defense, they are done kaput. The Bills just ran away. The Bills are running away laughing. The look-ahead spot that I said the look-ahead was a little scary was for Green Bay because Green Bay did have Jacksonville, who was coming off of at least their first win and going back home and real home game for Jacksonville. Green Bay wins 30-27. Good news. They got out of there. You just want to get out of Dodge your life. To Texas in the college, I said bad game coming off of loss like they were at number one. But you got out of Dodge alive. So they got out of Dodge alive, lived for another day to play Detroit, where they could not afford to have lost that game to Jacksonville. They lost a quarterback. The good news is, to me, maybe one of the best free agent signings was for the Green Bay Packers getting Malik Willis from Tennessee. So they had a capable backup if need be. And this kid came in and played well. 4 for 5, 56 yards, throws for a touchdown. No mistakes. The score was 27-27 with 148 to go. And what's he do? He drives his team down the field for a game-winning field goal. That's a lot of pressure. And this kid got the job done. So I tip my hat. The biggest takeaway positive for Green Bay Packer fans is Josh Jacobs finally settled in and got over the hump. I think he needed that big game like that, and he got it. He got 126, I think, total yards, so that was fine for him to make the opposing defenses have something extra to worry about, not just passing the ball. Because once you have to worry about the Green Bay running the ball and bullying you up the middle, especially, that means that the wide receivers are going to get more open than they already are. Now, Jordan Love still is up and down to me. I mean, he's still making mistakes, still throwing interceptions. So, you have to be a little leery if you're a Green Bay fan. And that's partly why you see Detroit on the road next week at Green Bay is a 3.5-point favorite. Now, part of that is probably, in the fact that Love might not go. So that should be the line if that's the case. But with Willis hitting a 51-yard touchdown or a big bomb to Reed to set up that final field goal, then that's good news because he has some, good mojo going into this game against Detroit. And Detroit's defense could be had. They can give up points. You're going to have to go point for point, though. And I thought that overall that was the worst game that the Green Bay schemes didn't work. I give credit to Trevor Lawrence. That was his best game of the year. 301 passing yards. He picked up on him. He read him. He made adjustments at the line of scrimmage that I hadn't seen him doing for a while. That's good for him. But again, that team's they're going nowhere fast. They're just playing out the string. So that's difficult. But 1 for 9, Jacksonville on third down conversions. And that's because they don't really have the offensive line is average and they just don't have great talent around Lawrence, really. The running game has to be better than it is, and it's just not. But again, when he has 21 for 32, 308, only sacked once, 2 touchdown passes. He did throw his interception because he has to do that, but almost 400 total yards against the Green Bay defense. That's a positive. You just got to tip your hat. Green Bay, Matt LaFleur, one of the best head coaches in the league, finds ways to win. That's it. This guy's close games. His record is unbelievable. So, big game coming up next week. I'll do a preview on that. That's going to be a highlight game next week. Detroit at Green Bay. Next, we have Baltimore, Cleveland, and Cleveland comes into the game, and I told you that the offense was dead, and you were going to have a hard time betting on that team unless you were betting on the defense because the defense still was live. And guess what? The defense came through, and they smothered Jackson for the most part. So you just look at this. You didn't watch the game. You just say, wow, Cleveland beat the Ravens, and Jackson had a bad game. Jackson had an F- grade from me. He overthrew 5 wide receivers that no one was around. There was a 20-yard halo around the guy, wide open down the field. 2 were for automatic touchdowns. 1, they might have got the guy. There was a defender close, but he overthrew him badly. And this is what he does. They can't be counted on week in and week out. And he doesn't really read the defenses at the line of scrimmage, and you have to give credit to Cleveland. They disguise some stuff well. They're still going to be a good defensive team going forward, but Baltimore was 2 for 10 on third down, 0 for 2 on fourth down. Did not make one big play in the whole game. And everybody, Mina, Kimes, and all the ESPN, they got, Lamar Jackson, the guy that hasn't won shit in his whole life, never really won a big game in his life. Okay, 1 MVP, I give you. Everybody running as a quarterback, you're taking a huge risk to get hurt. The guy's gotten better, no doubt about that. But the bottom line is, this is the type of game he loses, and they're 5-3. They're not the best team in the league. Their defense is not that good. It's okay. They create some turnovers. When you're ahead, it always makes your defense look better. You really learn about a defense when they're behind. And they have to make good plays because they can't just do crazy shit, this crazy stunt, crazy blitzing, knowing that if they get burned, it's going to give the other team the lead. So all of a sudden, now you have to cover, and they don't cover that good. They're okay, but they don't cover that good. So that got exposed yesterday. So when you allow Cleveland's putrid offense to 401 total yards, you're not that good. There was no letdown there. They just got beat up by a more physical team, and that's going to happen more down the road too. Next game is a game that I lost, Kansas City. And like I said, Kansas City 27-20. Vegas finishes with 228 total yards. Now, again, if you told me that Vegas was going to get 228, I'd have put 50,000 on the game instead of 6. Okay. But it is what it is. The quarterbacks got sacked 5 times by the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense played fantastic. Little shaky on the first drive. The last drive was the old prevent defense, and you prevent nothing, but you do come away with a win. So I also understand that you're just trying to clock out the game to win a game. You're not trying to cover for me or any of us betting. But Kansas City's defense was dominant in the game. First drive, last drive, all the in between. Raiders didn't do nothing. And that's what I expected to happen. But Patrick Mahomes gets a tip ball in the end zone. Once again, not a great game for Patty. Not MVP, not even close. Again, this team's winning with mirrors. Another nice win, but still winning ugly, which is a sign of a good team, of course. But at the same time, boy, it's coming. It is coming. D-Day's coming for this Chiefs team because the offense has no wide receivers. Their nice pick of Xavier Worthy, who we heard was going to be this speed demon and going down the field and making 50-yard catches. He dropped 3 balls, 2 for touchdowns, right in his hands, right in the red zone. Just dropped them. He sucks. He did this in college. Okay? I see all these guys coming out of college. We've seen this for years. The Raiders did it year after year with their first round picks of wide receivers. They don't deliver. Speed kills, but you got to catch the ball. He should be a defensive player because they can't catch. That's why they're defensive players playing cornerback or safety. This is going to be a problem because they don't have any other receivers. They got Hopkins. They targeted him 3 times. So I don't know. I just don't understand what's going on. It's only Houdini plays that are working for Kansas City's offense. Now it's the Travis Kelce show. He finally got his first touchdown halfway through the year. That just shows you what's going on with the Chiefs offense. So be careful. You're going to overlay with this Chiefs team over and over. So I didn't do all the games. They're the games that had some misleading stuff in them. But I'm going to do another video here shortly with the opening lines, and we got some crazy opening lines for week 9. Really crazy, probably the craziest I've seen all year. I had to do 3 or 4 triple takes on some of the lines that I saw. In fact, like I said, the Detroit one is, of course, going against the fact that they expect Love not to start for Green Bay. But you had the same situation for Washington last week. The line got up, basically was Chicago 3. And by the time the game kicked off, the Commanders were 1.5 point favorite once the word got out that he was going to play. And all of a sudden, he's now worth 4.5 points. So you got to be careful betting early. Sometimes you could get the jump. Sometimes you get burned for it. I try to, with the clients, I try to most of the time settle in and wait it out a little bit till it settles in because, having half the people get -3 and then other half get +3 and -1.5. That's a heartache for when you're doing the pick stuff. For me, I'm almost always going to be on the right side of it, but I got to make sure nearly 1,000 clients are on the right side of it as well with the same number. So that's a little tough. But we 2-1 and Denver just wins in a rout. In fact, I had a write up here on the Denver game. Oh, I did. Jets. Maybe not. Maybe I didn't do this Denver game. But Carolina, it is what it is. Dead team. Denver went out there and dismantled them. They weren't going to do nothing against that good Denver defense. I told you I liked what I saw from Bo Nix. I'm not a big fan, but he has another good game. The kid's getting better and better. He's impressing me. It's hard to impress me, but that was an easy one. That was my first 2.5 unit best bet of the year, and I don't do too many of that stuff. The situation was just screaming it for that ball game, and they started out down, and it looked a little bit shaky at first, but from that point on, it was all Denver, just a whitewash. And those games just don't grow on trees. They don't come around every week. I wish they did, but it's easy to say after they win too. But nothing exactly played out exactly the way you would have thought. Even my good friend Stevie Wonder called that. So it's not like it was that hard for anybody to make that selection. In fact, that was the number 1 selection in the survivor pool that the Circa has here in Las Vegas. And what makes that so funny, if that went down, that was going to eliminate, they were going to be down to like next to nothing of people left. So I personally wouldn't have played that game, even though I loved it, because I would have been rooting for the game to lose, maybe to help me in the contest purposes. But as far as the clients go, just a tremendous week. 8-1 in college football on Saturday, and then 2-1 yesterday with a best bet like that. We lose Kansas City. We won the Cincinnati Eagles game over. Played out exactly like I thought. The Cincinnati defense, I told you, they played two really bad defenses, or offenses the prior 2 weeks, Cleveland and the Giants, and that wasn't going to be easy for them to do the same against Eagles offense. And Cincinnati blew a lot of chances to have a lot more points, but that game flew way over the total. So I'm just thrilled to death. I lost Wisconsin in the football on Saturday is my only loss, and I still feel like I pretty much had the right side. Penn State didn't do that much, but Wisconsin gave it away, and that's okay. Again, you want to be on the right side of games, win or lose. Doesn't matter. It does matter to your wallet, but it doesn't matter to the long-term scheme because you got to be on the right side of most of your picks, 60, 70% of your picks to be a winner because it's hard. This is a hard gig to beat the house at 110 to win 100. So you got to be able to win 53.5% of your games. You got to win 54 and 46 to be basically just a little tad bit ahead. So it's hard. And, we've been able to do it, but, this is what I do for a living, but you have to be able to read between the lines on a lot of stuff. And this stuff here might help some of you guys because there's such misleading results. Like I said, that Detroit result really, I'm telling you that because that boded well for Tennessee. They actually played pretty well again on defense. This poor defense just doesn't have any help at all. And that's like a lot of other teams that some just don't have help from one side, or it's a one-sided operation. Either the defense is great, the offense sucks, or the offense is good, but the defense sucks and you just can't do anything with it. But it's way worse when the offense can't score. If you can't score, you're not beating anybody. So be sure to bookmark our site, Gary Wins, with the videos so you can never miss one. If you have a question, you want to email me to GaryGreeneWins@gmail.com. And again, you see it's Greene, Greene, and it's GaryGreeneWins@gmail.com. I'll get back to you. The best time to email me is I'll get back to you in the middle of the week here when I have a little more time. And we have some big stuff coming up here, but I'm totally dialed in. And soon, in a few days here, I'm going to start posting some college basketball videos. You don't want to miss them. That's my number one sport. Always has been. I always felt that it's the best sport because it's 6 days a week. You get advantage, and they're just throwing games up. They're not just hanging a game for a whole week. Half the teams these bookmakers don't even know, and you take advantage. And that's why we do so well in college basketball. But I'm going to give you some of my preseason looks. And I think it's the greatest year coming in of college basketball talent to the top 25 that any one of these top 25 for the first time in my life has an opportunity to cut down the nets in March Madness at the Final Four. And that is something that is good for us as bettors, but it's great, obviously, for TV to take advantage and really make a lot of money this year once again in college basketball. So have a great week ahead, and God bless, and may all your wagers be winning ones.